Welcome back to the show. Chris Gibb from Gibb Insurance Brokerage in studio with me. Chris, your office number, 519-736-8228.
That's right.
And you can email Chris at gibbinsurance.ca. Not .com. You'll email some other Gibb guy.
Proud Canadian. It's got to be .ca.
Proud Canadian. There you go. And again, if you have any questions for Chris in studio here today, you can call us live, 519-792-CKLW. That's 519-792-2559. Let's keep on going, Chris. Now, what's next on my list here? What types of things can help someone save money with house insurance?
Well, there's a lot of things. I mean, one of the biggest ones is you really do need to shop around.
Yeah.
These days, I hate to say that that loyalty is not rewarded. Many companies will give you a discount for having been with them for a while, but they can't treat a 25-year customer any different than someone who's been insured with them for 25 days.
Yeah.
Everyone has to be treated the same. So you really do have to, the number one thing is you need to shop around. Every few years, I think people should see what else is out there. There's always a new company that wants to gain business. There's things, there might be when you're, 40, they might have one rate. And when you turn 45, there might be another rate. So it's definitely worthwhile shopping around.
And the process isn't difficult anymore, right? It's, hey, Chris, shop around. What can you find for me?
No.
As opposed to, I think people get complacent, right? It's just, well, it's already there. Let's just whatever. And it got to the point, and when we called you not long ago, it got to the point where we kept getting, every year we're getting a renewal, and it's increasing and increasing and increasing. And I kept saying, this is making no sense. So you're right. You have to shop around.
You do. You need to shop around. And whether you have, a quote unquote good record or not so good record, again, it's you need to shop around and look. It only takes, like I say, 15 minutes for us to gather the information, work something out. If it leads to a worthwhile decision of switching companies, then you do it. It's not that hard.
Why are you giving me that look when you talk about good record, bad record? I told you, the lamppost backed up into me.
You know what? Your wife has a very good record,
yes,
so
she does, yeah.
She saved you a lot of money.
Oh, that's a funny story for another day. Let's talk about replacement costs. That's one of the biggest confusing things about insurance policies. I think everyone's confused. Most of the time, people will call us and say, "Hey, Dan, I think my house is worth $500,000. Oh, really? Unfortunately, it's only worth $300,000. Yeah, but my insurance paper says it's worth $500,000.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Of all the questions I get asked, that is probably the single biggest thing that people have a hard time wrapping their heads around. And I get it. When you get that insurance renewal and you bought your house for $250,000 and they show it as being insured for $400,000,
yeah,
it really doesn't make sense. But what you have to remember is that number, when you get that insurance paperwork, they are not insuring your house. They're insuring the replacement of your house.
Right.
So in that number, there's 15% for debris removal. God forbid, if your house burns down, they've got to come in and remove the foundation, remove all the debris. Then they have to rebuild it at today's prices, not, when you bought it 10, 15 years ago. When you build a house or you get a house from a builder, that doesn't include the blinds, it doesn't include the light fixtures, all the flooring and things. So this is your house replacing it as it stands. So the two numbers can be different. And the older your home is, the wider spread you're going to have.
No kidding. Like you say, it's if your home is 100 years old, to replace that is...
Well, and that's the issue is you are guaranteed the replacement of your home as close as possible to what it was. So, if you've got an $80,000 home that's 80 years old, it most likely has plaster walls. Well, they have to... Technically, they have to replace that plaster. You might have 8-inch oak baseboards.
Yeah.
You don't have those hollow core doors from Home Depot. You've got solid wood doors. So at the end of the day, that's what they're replacing. They're not replacing, an $80,000 home. They're replacing all the components of the home.
Let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about claims, okay? Because I've been through it. You know, some good friends of ours, their house did burn down.
Okay.
And then flooded a couple years later.
Oof.
Uh,
Wow. They might be calling
They're
in.
doing great today. Yeah, they might be calling. So, you know, we know people who've gone through some devastation with insurance. In our case, it wasn't that serious. It was just a bit of water in the basement, nothing horrible. But regardless, we still have to go through the process, and it's a pain. It really is.
It is. It is.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, you know, it's. I think what people have to understand is insurance companies aren't out there not to pay claims.
Of course.
I've been in this business for almost 20 years, and almost everyone I've come across in the claims department of various insurance companies, they want to pay out what they're legally obligated to pay out. They want to settle your claim because somewhere someone has a desk full of files, and the sooner they pay yours and close it, the sooner they can move on to the next one. But it is a devastating process. And I think one problem in our industry is we see this every day. So when someone calls in with a flooded basement or a roof that's blown off, they may not get the warm, fuzzy feeling that they need. You know, that's what I find when people call me about a claim, because I tell all my clients, I'm your first phone call.
Yep.
They call, you empathize with them. This is most likely the first time they've been through it.
Yep.
You know, your home is your castle, your safe place. And when you find 6 inches of water in the basement, it can be devastating. My parents went through it. You know, their basement flooded twice. So it's there should be a little more compassion I'd like to see from the industry. But generally, it's an industry where, you know, there are disaster restoration companies that can be at your house within an hour. And most companies, they want to pay the claims fairly, equitably, and put people back to where they are.
Yeah. Let's talk about contents. So, you know, in our issue, when our basement had some water issues, we had to deal with some content, lost contents. How does that usually work? You know, that being our first experience, really, they almost take your word for it, which is kind of silly in my opinion. But how else do they do it, really?
Well, really, I mean, it's insurance is a contract of utmost good faith.
Yeah.
The insurance company is going to believe you because they're expecting you to tell the truth.
Yeah.
You know, we all hear the stories about, you know, when your Van Gogh was damaged in the water, or your 7 fur coats. But
Chris, shh.
I just want to know why you wear all those fur coats, Dan. It's for most people, the vast majority of people that in this area, it's not a big issue as far as fraud goes. They, you know, it's pretty easy to tell from looking at a house what they're going to have in it.
Yeah.
You know, if someone tells us that they had, you know, 2 widescreen televisions downstairs, well, this day and age, that's not unheard of. It's most likely that they did have that. You know, your contents, the first thing you need to do, especially with a sewer backup, is they take the contents out, what's salvageable and what isn't.
Yeah.
A lot of times your disaster restoration companies will come. They have warehouses that, and this is something that's always amazes me. They have warehouses where they can dry it, they can disinfect things, they can dry your pictures, save as many as they can, and then you see what do we need to replace, what can be repaired, what can put the client back to where they were before the claim.
And the first thing we did was we got into the basement. Again, in our case, it was just the carpet was soppy, so we couldn't actually see, you know, water pooling. Right. Although it was pooled under the carpet. It was a nice thick carpet. It wasn't that serious for us. But in our case, the adjuster, first thing I did was I took pictures of everything myself.
Excellent idea.
We ended up having to remove all the carpets just because they were going to be wild. It was a bit busier in the area. So we removed everything ourselves, and they actually reimbursed us a little bit of money.
Yes, a lot of companies will reimburse you for your time.
Yeah. And so that I thought that was fair. So the whole process, I think it was definitely a fair process. It was just tedious, and nobody likes to deal with it. Is what it comes down to.
No.
But what do you do? It's, you know, especially after big rainfalls or big storms, and it's happening left and right. They're going to be busy. You just got to deal with it. What are some of the common issues we're seeing? You know, for example, and just in insurance in general, Kitech plumbing, knob and tube wiring. Give us some of the more common. I know in my industry, and this is a real estate show, so maybe I should bring it up. But some of the more popular ones are knob and tube wiring. If there's knob and tube wiring, we got a problem.
Well, I think this is one of the, especially for someone who's buying a home or a first-time home buyer, this is one of the areas that your real estate agent can really help you out. If you knob and tube wiring, I don't know if people know what knob and tube wiring is. It's a very old type of wiring that it's not bad wiring, but it can't handle the loads that today's homeowners put on it. Yeah. So most insurance companies, most mainline insurance companies, do not want knob and tube wiring in a home. Generally, they might give you 30 or 60 days from the date you discover it to remove it. Mm-hmm. But this is a spot where a good real estate agent can make sure that people are aware of that.
No kidding. And again, it's why home inspections are important as well, because they're really going to dig deep in there and have a good look. What else do we have? We have aluminum wiring. So although it's not as serious as knob and tube, what we are finding now with our team is that if a house has aluminum wiring, the insurance company wants to send an ESA inspector out there to provide a satisfactory report before they will guarantee insurance.
Yes.
You're seeing that, correct?
Yes. Aluminum wiring is something, usually the early 70s is when they had, the price of copper went up, so they used aluminum. Aluminum wiring isn't necessarily a bad product. It's safe, but people have to understand you can't put aluminum wire, you can't mix it with copper without doing certain things. So up until recently, most insurance companies, if you had aluminum wiring in your home, all they would require is a licensed electrician to come in, take a look at the system, and on company letterhead, just provide a letter saying that the system was safe. We are starting to see a lot of companies are starting to require what we call an ESA certificate, Electrical Safety Authority. That's a little bit more complicated, a little bit more expensive, a little more bureaucracy involved. But again, that's why they need a good real estate agent to point those things out before they sign on the dotted line.
No kidding. Some other things of note, 60 amp service, not so liked
Not
anymore.
so liked, no.
We don't see it that often. It's older homes that will come across 60 amp service. You want at least 100 amp service. Oil tanks. We're not coming across that as much anymore, but it's still around.
I think oil tanks are really they're very rare in this area now.
Yeah.
But they are around. You can buy a home and not know that there's an oil tank in there or not think it's a big deal. There's a huge liability exposure if that oil tank leaks.
Yes.
So most insurance companies, if that oil tank is over 10 or 15 years old, it's a deal breaker. You need to either have it replaced or inspected.
Wood burning fireplaces. Again, they might request a wet inspection.
Yes, like a wood burning fireplace, an open fireplace is not
stove,
an
I
issue.
should say, an oven.
Yeah. Like if you have a stove that slows down the burn rate, then a lot of times they'll want to have a wet inspection. Yeah. And I think those are usually about $150, $200.
Yep.
But again, the inspection is the first step. It's what do I have to do with this stove afterwards? I mean, I've seen stoves in people's garages where you've got a wood stove and 6 inches away there's a shelf with spray cans on it, spray paint cans. Wood stoves are great if you know how to use them.
Yeah.
And you take care of them.
Hire a professional, folks.
There you go.
Hire a professional. Okay, so